Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, today we are going to talk a little bit about nonprofits and charities and administrative salaries. Because in a recent video, I said that the financials weren't necessarily the most important thing when we're looking at organizations to support. And I had a couple of people send in messages asking about administrative salaries. And they basically all said that, a big cue for them was that if the administrative salaries were really high, then, they didn't think that was one that they should support. I used to believe the exact same thing. But over the years, I have met some of the people who have those salaries. And one person in particular made me start paying more attention to it. And I'll tell you a story, but it applies to a lot of other stuff as well. So I met her twice in two different places, working for two different charities. And we became friends. She is basically a marketing, fundraising, event coordinating goddess. And she kind of works like a hired gun for nonprofits. The most recent job that I'm aware of, I know she's moved on from here, but she left here and then went up north somewhere. Then I think she went to Tennessee. And it was that one where I actually got the numbers because I was curious when we were talking. And she gets paid $250,000 a year, $250,000 a year. When she showed up at this place, the previous 5 years, their donations, the amount of money they had coming in, had been flat. They were making their operating expenses, but they didn't have enough to fix anything when it broke. Like they were literally at the point of we need to do a bake sale. And they hired her. The first year after she was there, the revenue, the donations that came in, went up $3 million. The second year, they went up an additional $5 million. Over those 2 years, they paid her $500,000, but they netted 7.5. It seems like a good investment. And it's important to remember that when you are hiring people that have specialty skills like that, who are really good at what they do, you don't have to be competitive because, oddly enough, $250,000 isn't competitive. She could go to work at a resort and make way more. But she enjoys what she's doing, and she likes helping, and she likes moving around every couple of years, And then when you look at organizations that have a lot of logistics, there are some massive organizations that have logistics similar to Walmart. A lot of these nonprofits, and obviously here we are talking about not mutual aid. We are talking about legal entities that have bookkeeping and stuff like that they have to do. The people who can successfully run those, they could also successfully run a Fortune 500 company. So they don't have to be competitive as in paying the same, but if they're not close, you're not going to get those people. Everybody likes to frame it as a war on whatever, whatever their cause is. It's a war on poverty, a war on homelessness. It's a war on, whatever. The one thing I think that everybody watching this channel knows is that wars cost money. So what I normally do is look at the administrative salaries as a percentage of the revenue, of how much they have coming in and what their program expenses are, and do a comparison. Now, if they're spending more on administrative salaries than they are like actually doing what the charity's supposed to, yeah, that's a super bad sign. But just because it hits, seven figures total, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it might be a good use of the funds to bring in more or to set up the logistics to keep stuff rolling. It's if you run across a charity and you're looking at trying to decide whether or not to support it, and you notice those high administrative salaries, talk to somebody who's used their services. That is always going to be a better tell of how good they are than just about anything else, because you're going to see what they do firsthand, and then you scale it based on the amount of people they help per year. It's on their website, or the amount of money they have towards a certain goal, or whatever, and look at it in context of the overall amount of funding. Because I can imagine if you're looking at a charity and you see that they're paying $250,000 a year for somebody to plan parties, you might not look at that as a good use of funds. But if those parties and those events bring in the money that actually allows the nonprofit to do its job, I mean, it's not great. None of this should exist. But in a perfect world, the nonprofits wouldn't exist because the problems would be solved. It is a fight. And fights like that, they take resources. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.